Let's see, I'll call this meeting to order at 7:03 on the Monday,
July 13th.
July 13th.
I can do my normal spiel, I guess.
Yes.
Sure.
You do your spiel.
So thank you all for joining us tonight. I am Community Development Director Andrew McNichol. To my right from staff is also Senior Planner Olivia Knightley. Tonight's Cpdc meeting of July 13th is being held in a hybrid fashion, so we have members both in the person, in the room and over the Zoom, and we also have public attendees over the Zoom and in the room. From the board tonight, in person, is members Tom Armstrong and two new members, Jerry Beninati and Bob McSheffrey. Over the Zoom, John Arena is logged in. Chair Heather Klisch should be logging in any minute now. The board will likely follow their standard procedures tonight in that an applicant will present their application to the board. The board will provide comment and question amongst themselves and then open to public comment on that item. If you do have public comment, if you're in the audience here, please raise your hand and the chair will look to find you. I can do that tonight. I've talked to Heather or anyone here can. Over the Zoom, please use the raise hand feature found under reactions, or if your camera is on, wave us down. We can capture you that way. The chat is enabled to us as hosts, but we would prefer to capture you if we can. If you do have public comment, please just introduce your name and address for the record. Otherwise, this meeting is being recorded and broadcasted by RCTV on all local channels. And I think we're just about ready to begin.
Okay. The first item on the agenda is 90 Prospect Street approval not required, a subdivision plan. And you're going to give an explanation of that?
Yes, so I will pull up the plans. Jack Sullivan, the project engineer, is online. How are you, Jack?
I'm doing well. Can everyone hear me?
We sure can.
Yes.
So I guess first, just for everybody's sake to know what an approval not required plan is or an A&R plan is a subdivision of land that does not go through the definitive public hearing subdivision process. And the reasons for that can be many, but in this case, it's mostly that it's not creating new buildable lots or it's not creating new right-of-way. A&Rs are typical for when a subdivision is happening on lots that already exist and already have frontage to and from a road or a public way. As we say. So in this case, it is a division of a lot, but is not affecting the frontage or minimum lot requirements in the town of Reading, lot area, lot width, things of that nature. So they're usually for conveyances or changes in lot lines that just need to happen over time. But they are just a board procedure. It's not a public hearing noticed to the public or abutters or anything like that. So Jack, if you want to explain this plan that we got on the screen, maybe?
Sure. Thank you, Andrew. For the record, my name is Jack Sullivan. I'm owner of the Sullivan Engineering Group. This property is 90 Prospect Street. It's located within the S15 district. So in the S15 district, you're required to have a minimum lot size of 15,000 square feet, and you're required to have a minimum lot frontage of 100 linear feet. We're not changing any of the frontage on this lot. The existing frontage is 130.51 feet, so we exceed the minimum 100 feet. And 90 Prospect Street is a well oversized lot, and there's two parcels that will be broken out from this lot. There's parcel A to the rear and parcel B. Those are both labeled as not a building lot, but there'll be separate parcels held by the owner of 90 Prospect Street, and that's the reason we did this plan. They wanted to create those two out parcels. The intention is to convey those to the abutters. But this is the first step in that process, is creating this plan, and then those parcels would have to be deeded to those abutting property owners. So we meet all the requirements for the S15 zoning district to create this A&R plan. And as Andrew stated, if you have the frontage and you have the area, it's basically a rubber stamp and it's not a public hearing. And that's the plan you have in front of you.
Hey, Jack, John Arena, I have a question. Most cases, the A&Rs don't necessarily have collateral involvement. In this case, could you speak about the likely intended abutter steps to the extent that they have a bearing on what ultimately comes up and therefore what the town citizens might see? It's not a commitment, but maybe you're aware of just in general terms what's planned.
As far as the two rear parcels.
Yeah, how would once the conveyance is made, how would the access be provided through the existing right-of-ways that those abutters have?
Yeah, so those properties to the rear front on Longview Road. And I think the idea would be those properties would still have frontage on Longview Road. And if they wanted to combine parcel A and B with their lots, they would come in with a future A&R plan to combine them. What would typically happen is, example, for like parcel A, abuts number 66 Longview Road, their deed would most likely represent their current deed, and then it would say parcel A is being conveyed from the owner of 90 Prospect Street to 66 Longview. But there'd be two separate parcels unless we did an official A&R plan to merge parcel A with that existing 66 Longview Road.
And there are two parcels, and is one of the intentions to have each of the abutters at the rear effectively take what's directly behind their existing property? Is that your understanding?
That's correct. That's exactly what they're looking to do.
All right. So
their frontage would stay the same. It's really to the rear of their properties, and so they would just be. You can see 90 Prospect Street. It's kind of weird, it goes out. There's like a dog leg back over. So they're just kind of squaring up the lot, and it gives the abutters some additional land.
There are no utility easements or other easements that anyone's aware of on either the abutters or this that complicate what's being proposed?
No, none. I actually did some survey work at number 60 Longview Road. There's no easements with that property.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Yep.
Let's see. Jerry, you are entitled to talk during all these meetings and stuff like that. Whether you vote or not depends on whether somebody's missing. And I think somebody's missing. But if you
Hi, Tom. I just want to let you know it's Heather, and I'm here.
Okay.
Thank you for carrying on while I was looking for a signal.
Not a problem. And I think Guy's on too, is he not?
He hasn't logged on as of yet.
Yes, okay. I don't have any questions on it.
No, it's kind of by right, isn't it, regardless?
I would say so. So he's not asking for anything from us, it's just an explanation,
Yeah.
so. I don't think we need to take any vote of consensus or anything.
No, I agree.
Yeah, it will be a vote to endorse the A&R plan, and then we have the certificate that Jack can take to the Registry of Deeds as well, but just a vote to endorse and signatures.
Okay, so
whenever the
that's what
board's
you
ready.
want?
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay. Can I have a motion to endorse the A&R plan?
Endorse it.
Second? Okay.
Okay.
Let's see, any discussion?
Do we need to have the motion be to endorse the A&R plan specifically at 90 Prospect Street?
Okay, do you both accept that as an added clause?
Sure. Yep.
Yes, okay.
And I guess I go further to say in the plan presented to the Cpdc in its current form, in other words, there are amendments that are material that come back.
Accepted and accepted? Okay. Okay, any other questions? Since we're appearing over the airwaves and stuff like that, we need a voice
Yep.
approval of that.
Yep. Roll.
So,
Roll call.
roll call, you got it. John,
Yes.
and Guy's not here, correct?
Heather's on the Zoom.
Heather?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Jack, I think we do just need the Mylars. I don't think we got a copy, but if and when we can get them signed with the members and get them
I
over.
believe 2 Mylars were dropped with the package.
I thought so.
I didn't see them, but I'll.
Yeah, let me double check. They must be down there.
Okay.
Must have just missed them.
Yeah, I know I had made the 2 Mylars and I think 3 prints.
Okay. All right. I'll get those signed for you.
Okay.
If you can't find them, let me know and I can come in with them.
All right.
Heather, do you
All
want
right,
to
thank
take
you.
over at this point? I see you're in your
Thanks, Chuck.
car.
Sure, I'm parked, I'm not, there's not movement
Okay.
behind me, that's, and I
And if you can't,
apologize to everybody for being late, especially Jerry and Robert, welcome to CPDC. It's not my norm to not be there, but I appreciate that. Jack, are you all set then? Do you have other things with us as well?
No, I'm all set, Heather. So thank you all board members. Thank you, Heather. Thank you, Andrew, Olivia. Thank you.
okay,
Okay,
Heather, it's
terrific.
yours,
Thank
and
you.
if you don't have the calendar, the next item is 281 is the postponement until the August meeting.
Yep.
Yes, let's go ahead and take that vote. Andrew can update us on what's going on, and then there are some other items that I'd like to take out of order because I understand we only have John Arena till 8, so the things that we need to vote on, let's do before then.
Yep, so 281 is still working through some of their plan changes and conservation process. So without any major updates at this time, they just felt appropriate to continue to the next hearing. That way, any conversations will hopefully be more substantive. There might be some administrative needs we need to work on with them with new board members and maybe renoticing this hearing or other. So we're working to those answers as well, if necessary.
Can they
Right.
merely read the minutes of those meetings? I think we may have had 3, Olivia?
Yeah, I think there were too many
Yeah,
hearings
many.
for them to do so. And
Right.
each board member that's eligible to vote has already filed a Mullen Rule form, which isn't a
Is there a limit
problem.
to the Mullen Rule, how far back it can go, or?
Just one.
Yes.
there's not, but you're limited to 1. So 2 members missing the initial 3, they simply won't be eligible to vote. And all 4 members who have been here for the entire hearing have missed at least 1 meeting. So 1 more miss from any of the existing 4, we fall out of possible voting quorum.
But only
And those 4 are, just to complete the puzzle?
Yeah.
John, Heather,
Tom and Guy.
Tom, and Guy.
Okay.
Got it, okay.
Our 4 continuing members.
Yeah.
You know, we should go ahead and take this vote to continue, and I was going to save this topic for the board reorganization, but this would be an opportune time for the full board and for our new members to kind of explain the Mullen Rule, since we just started to go down there in answering questions. I'm wondering, Andrew, would you like to kind of take it from the top and explain kind of our responsibilities in the middle of hearing, what the Mullen Rule and Mullen Rule form is?
Yeah, absolutely. So when it comes to a public hearing, which is a legally noticed, posted with the town clerk and so on, agenda item, which for us in the planning board, and you guys are typically your site plan reviews, your subdivisions, and your special permits. There's probably a few others that pop up, stormwater permit and other, but might be associated with any of those previous. When it comes to a public hearing like that, there are 1 minimum voting requirements and 2 minimum quorum requirements. And so on something, it's hard to make every meeting, right? A lot of these hearings go multiple meetings, revisions are made time and time again, public comment, board comment, field identification, changes are made. So a board member on a open public hearing can only miss 1 meeting and file the Mullen Rule form to be eligible to vote on that hearing. So that's why it can be important for consistent attendance. when it comes to the Mullen Rule form, you can watch the YouTube video or read the minutes, or both, and that's a form that we sign and post with the clerk. That way it's on the record for that specific application that this board member did attest to watching these minutes, so they are caught up to speed. But once you miss more than one, you are not eligible to vote. So for something like special permits, you need a supermajority for there to even be a passing vote, right? 4 out of 5 as opposed to your 3 out of 5. So it becomes a bit more important on the applicant side to have as much voting member quorum as possible. But that's just where that application is, right? It's been months that this thing has been continuing on, and that's their risk of continuing applications. And so now there's just been some turnover to try to help work with them and make sure that they have enough people going forward to hear the hearing and possibly vote on it one day.
So, thank you, Andrew. Let me see, are there any questions about that process and procedure before we go on?
Seems pretty straightforward.
So this on 281 requires a supermajority of 4 out of 5.
Yep.
And 4 out of 4 doesn't
Right.
do it.
Right. Well, 4 out of 4
Well, 4 out
would
of 4
do
would
it.
do it.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
So you need the minimum of 4 on this application, at least.
That ought to be something we should take a look at. Because every time there's changes, if we've got these multiple things, there's no sense that they present all the evidence again.
I don't know that that's something, I think that, Andrew, is that state law or local law?
So that's state, so that
Yeah.
comes from them. And at least my advice to the applicant, if and when they come back, would be to present that application as a whole so everybody's up to speed. It's also been a while since they were before any board member. So that will be my advice to them, to present the application in full and not just revisions that they may have made over the last 2 or 3 months.
And if they do present it in full, then these people would be eligible, the newly elected people.
If we renotice it, yeah.
Okay. And is that our intention?
That is the intention. We've made note of it to them. We haven't heard back. They were looking into other possibilities that I don't know exist. But it's a pretty straightforward ability for us to just repost and print a legal ad to renotice the hearing. There's some administrative things that would need to be done from you guys, but pretty straightforward abutters notice process and posting.
Okay.
And can you remind us, Andrew, when was the last time they talked to the board? I just kind of want to make it clear. It's like this has been going on months and months and months and months. And so it is this, when the board does change over for things that have been lingering for a long time, oftentimes it's just in everybody's interest to start with a fresh presentation.
I want to say it was May. Let me double check.
They submitted their application and materials for the April meeting.
So it might have been April, actually.
I don't believe they've been. Maybe it was earlier. I think they've been
I think this is
before
the
us twice.
second.
Yeah, so it was April. So it's been May, June, July now since they've been here.
Okay, I guess it hasn't been months and months and months and months, but still, I think it would be, I thank you for suggesting they do that. I'm in support of you suggesting they do that.
Okay, I can move, if everybody's ready, I can move that item number, not a number, but it's 281 Main Street mixed-use development be extended to the August meeting with the understanding that they would endeavor to present from ab initio, so to speak, from the beginning.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
Second. Okay.
Gonna help us a little.
You got it.
And we will do a roll call. Actually, Andrew, something like this. Are John, Tom, Guy and Heather the only ones who can vote on even the continuation, or can the whole board vote? Continuance?
That is
or
a
can the
great
whole board vote?
question. I think I would actually default to just the voting
Yeah.
members. Sorry,
My question is, does it have to be does it have to be
original.
Tom, John, and me, the original ones?
I
or
believe
all?
so, yes.
Okay, so we're gonna do roll call, since we are half remote. I'll start John.
Yes.
Heather, yes. Tom
Yes?
and Guy is not here.
Guy is not here, so, but the three
But
is
that's
enough.
okay because we are issuing the permit.
Yep,
Okay, thank you.
okay, thank you.
Heather, I don't know whether
Um,
you've got the agenda or not, do you?
I
Well, the
have the-
next item on the agenda is a discussion on ADUs, accessory dwelling units by the staff.
I think,
Yes, and if everybody is amenable, because the ADU topic and the other zoning bylaw topic for Eastern Gateway don't require a vote, but the board reorganization does require a vote. That's who's going to be the next chair and the next secretary. Would you all be amenable to taking the board reorganization out of order so we can go next to that and then go to the ADU? Any objection?
everybody is nodding in the room.
Okay, good. I know, I'll have to like, if I look too close, you'll all be looking at my notes, and that's not really what we all want to do. Okay, so great, thank you. So, basically what we are doing here is choosing the next chair and the next, I think the technical title is secretary,
Mhm.
which, essentially, history has it that the person who is secretary is probably going to be the next chair. We do like to rotate around. There has at the same time been a large amount of turnover. Hillary, our most recent secretary, cycled off simply because of her personal responsibilities. So we have a place where we need to nominate both a chair and a secretary. So let me open the floor for nominations for the chair for the coming year.
I'd like to make a motion to nominate Heather Klisch as chair and Tom Armstrong as secretary.
All right, and are there any other nominations? We can consider both at the same time. All right, so I've been chair the last year, and normally we do like to cycle around. Because we have a fair number of new faces, I'm okay with being chair for another year. But it is a lot of responsibility, and so we try to share the responsibility. So ideally, we'll cycle around next time around. I guess I would ask, is there a second, and then we can have any additional discussion?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Any additional discussion on these?
As one of the newer members, to the new West members, the amount of, this is effectively a compliance board. This board oversees it's a check step against applicants in the town complying with town conditions and bylaws, particularly land use. There are sometimes disputes, et cetera. The subject matter knowledge to be able to do that is really hard to distill out of the paperwork. It's not impossible, but what has really worked for me is to listen to John Weston and more recently Heather. John in particular had done it for many, many years, and it was second nature to him. And having somebody in that role that understands the yin and the yang of how this all plays together is very helpful. You can go try to digest all the statutory language, and that's probably not a bad choice to do. But having somebody at the helm that's actually done this and has the subject matter knowledge under his or her belt is really helpful.
Makes sense.
All right, thank you, John. Any other discussion? Okay, we can take a vote, and I have a couple of other comments and suggestions. Let's see, why don't we, well, I guess we can take a vote. We could vote for both at the same time. So the nomination, the motion put forward is to have elect me as Heather as chair and Tom Armstrong as secretary. Thank you, Tom. I will start, we'll do roll call vote. I will start.
Let me ask this, can we vote on ourselves? Should we hold it separately?
Absolutely.
Yeah, you can vote for yourselves, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Why don't I start in the room this time? We'll start with Jerry.
Second.
Oh, this is a yes or no?
Oh, yes.
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 Okay, Robert,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
and Heather, yes. Okay, thank you, everybody. We're moving right along. I do want to add a couple of comments following John's comments just now, where yes, there's a lot to know about our bylaws. We're a board that is bound by a fair amount of state law as well, and everybody has the opportunity to learn about the ins and outs. There are some formal opportunities, if Andrew hasn't told you about it already. There's a really wonderful group called the Citizens Planner Training Collaborative. As you know, a neat thing about Massachusetts is all towns run on a lot of volunteer steam. Thanks to all of you for stepping into this. And they have online webinars throughout the year, and also a conference, that I think is either every fall or every spring, that basically provides education. Provides education on everything from site plan review to certain changes that are timely, and I would encourage everybody to take advantage of those opportunities. And then, of course, the only way you'll learn is to take a look at the bylaws and any other requirements. We have a lot of design guidelines as well when we have projects coming before us. That's the only way I learned it. And we can all do it. So that's my pitch, to take advantage of the year to study up on things, and we'll have a new chair and secretary in the coming year. And thank you, Tom, for serving. Thank you all for stepping up to the board. Okay, now we have, I think, the accessory dwelling unit topic, right? And Andrew or Olivia, are you going to give us an update on this for discussion?
Yes, I'm going to pass to Olivia for this one. She's just got some information and what we hope to propose to you guys as a zoning bylaw amendment related to accessory dwelling units, if you see fitting.
Cool. So
Thank you.
As Andrew mentioned, this is a pretty high level summary of some of the new I'll call them new state regulations that were passed a year and change ago regarding accessory dwelling units, also known as ADUs. So we're anticipating a future public hearing likely in the coming months. So any zoning proposals and bylaw updates have to go before the Cpdc in a public hearing process. And that's what we'll do in this instance. So we will come before you and talk through any proposed edits and changes to our current zoning bylaw related to ADUs. People can provide public comment, etc. So that will be the public hearing process. But tonight we just wanted to inform our new board members and provide a little bit of a refresh on what the town has to do to ensure we're compliant with the new regulations moving forward. We are technically already compliant, which we'll get into a little bit in this, but just at a
Can
high level.
Can I ask two umbrella questions that might
Sure.
bound this? In this interval between when this body of work we're undertaking tonight is complete, what's the status of Reading's current ADU language? You mentioned earlier it's compliant, so we can,
Yes.
in all cases, we are at or greater than what the state requires, I suppose. Is that correct?
Yeah, so our current bylaw actually allows, to a certain degree, a little bit more, but has some restrictions in it that we can no longer enforce. And I'll get into those a little bit. But since the new regulations have been passed, the building, engineering, planning, all of these departments have been ensuring that we're enforcing ADUs as they've been designated a protected use, and making sure that we're enforcing them properly and not being overly restrictive, if that answers your question.
So if somebody comes before us, we let them know that the language, there's certain sections that are not enforceable and should be
Yes.
ignored. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a practical limit as to how long we could stay in our current state before we adopt a state compliant, literally a state compliant version? Is there any restriction on time schedule that covers this?
No, there's no like hard and fast requirement for us to do this, but it has presented some challenges for the building department and our division, as well as applicants and residents and the engineers and architects that they work with. It just can get a little bit tedious when your local regulations can't be enforced. And you have to defer them to the state regulations, which are posted in a variety of places, and have inconsistent language with our local language. So people just get very confused by what they can and cannot do.
I don't want to minimize it, but is it more than confusion? Is there actually conflict where you've got?
Yeah, certainly we've seen instances where people have presented plans to us and there's been confusion on like square footage and things. And I think the additional time can end up costing, money and.
Sure, time is money.
Yeah, exactly. So just trying to make it easier for applicants and people that want to go ahead and do these ADUs by right now.
And lastly, if I've understood you correctly, Reading could adopt language that is above the state minimum in any regard and be compliant. True, we're not bound to be at the minimum. We
Correct,
could do more.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, very good. Thank you.
Yeah, so an ADU is just a small secondary living space that can be within an existing, what we call principal structure, or it can be detached, it can be within. So there's a different variety of how these units can be constructed. To date, we've allowed them in Reading up to 1,000 square feet by special permit if it's within an existing accessory building on somebody's lot, or if you're adding a new structure or increasing the gross floor area of your principal structure. So if you have a house and you're creating additional area to that structure, then that special permit is required. If it's within the principal dwelling, you're not adding any gross floor or livable area. That was always by right, up to 1,000 square feet. With the new state regulations, we have to allow these structures by right regardless of their orientation, so long as they abide by our local zoning regulations. So that can be within, attached, detached, any variety of the sort. And so the state has deemed these a protected use. This is categorized under a specific amendment at the state level, which identifies churches and schools and now accessory dwelling units as protected uses by right. The interesting component to these is that it's only protected up to 900 square feet within zoning districts that allow single family as a use by right. So it's protected, but with some stipulations. And their definition, I just think, is helpful for everybody to understand. They say an attached or detached ADU that is located or is proposed to be located on a lot in a single family residential zoning district and is protected by MGL Chapter 48, Section 3, provided that only one ADU on a lot may qualify as a protected use. An ADU that is non-conforming to zoning shall still qualify as a protected use if it otherwise meets this definition. So we'll get into that a little bit more, but just to help understand why these new regulations apply to ADUs. And this was effective in February of 2025, so it's been some time now, and we've had a number of applications since. Just to highlight some of the permitting to date, in 2022 to 2024, we saw around 13. 7 of these required discretionary approval by the Zoning Board of Appeals. In 2025, we saw 9, only 2 receiving ZBA relief. And that could be because they were over a certain square footage or needed dimensional relief for like setbacks or things of that nature. And then in 2026, we've seen to date around 6 applications, none of which required ZBA approval because of the new regulations. The average square footage we've seen, and just a reminder, current zoning allows up to 1,000 square feet, but the protected use ADU only allows, under the state's eyes, up to 900 square feet. So we're seeing a little bit under that threshold. Average number of bedrooms is around 1.5, and attached or internal to the structure, we've seen 8 and 7 detached. So falling 50-50 on attached and detached here.
Olivia, could you say a few more words about the ZBA involvement? Has it been mostly about misalignment of the proposal with the town's ADU and setbacks, et cetera?
So here I can jump back up. In our zoning bylaw, this table is just a screenshot of like ADUs that require a special permit. So anything that is like adding gross floor area to an existing structure requires a special permit, or if you're creating an ADU within an existing accessory structure, they also require a special permit. Say if you're converting your like bonus room into an ADU, that's within the existing principal dwelling, so you're not necessarily modifying any of the structure that's external, so that would be by right. Does that help?
John, what I would say is the use itself required a special permit more often than not. We saw very few by right ADUs, and there were some dimensional relief needed as well to extend non-conforming setbacks or other to add them to the lot.
One area that I think will be the more exciting topic will be setbacks.
Agreed.
It's one thing to by right have a second property on the parcel. When I think in the light of that, the setback becomes problematic for the neighbors, particularly in smaller lots. Does the state language speak to setbacks, minimum setbacks?
So what it will say, and we might be getting there, and sorry if I'm jumping ahead, Olivia, is that an ADU is allowed the minimum accessory setback in the district. And for us, we at times do have 5-foot requirements for sheds or garages, and there are other restrictions on those. But the state would interpret that at times as saying that an ADU is allowed a 5-foot setback. So there are reasonable regulations that I think we could look at to try to amend to help protect, and if that feels as an area of concern, to say an ADU maybe shouldn't be 5 feet if we can help it, but how can we change that while not taking away the ability to do a shed or something like that that is more fitting? And so that's something we have to craft, I think, a bit more carefully.
Are you suggesting that the language that governs garages is being directly applied to ADUs today?
It is.
For setback?
It is in some regards, yes.
Is that, does town council, I hate to jump into it, but to me, this is the most controversial of it. The state's going to dictate minimums, we're going to tweak them. But where neighbors get really involved is is something appearing in near their backyard. And I think this is going to be one of the more inflammatory topics.
I agree, and that's why we want to make sure our regulations are clear that an accessory dwelling unit is.
All right, very good, thank you.
I have notes on that, but I'll wait for later. So the purpose of the bylaw update, like I said, is just to make sure the town is in compliance with the minimum requirements and to just help streamline permitting, like I said. This helps a lot for the building division and just creates more consistency for us working with them, working with applicants. And like I said, new regulations supersede some of our inconsistent local zoning to a degree. So it just makes it easier for us if we have one document that we can defer to. And then again, ADUs still have to comply with any conservation regulations and go through building planning, engineering review to make sure everything is in compliance with the appropriate regulations. So getting into a little bit more of what the state is asking for, has been asking for. Some municipalities do require a site plan review. That is no longer allowed. That's not something that we have done in the past. ADUs would go through the ZBA for approval if necessary, but we have never done site plan review for ADUs. That is something that we could do. It's not something that we are advising though. You can impose reasonable restrictions for Title V. That's like sewer, or septic, I believe. I think we only have a handful of properties that are actually on septic in town, so it's really a case-by-case basis if that comes up, but it's not something that we've really regulated in the past, and if it's applicable, I believe that just goes through the health division, Board of Health. May impose, as John mentioned, regulations concerning bulk and height of structures, and that's something that we see often with protected uses. The board can really only regulate and opine on things that are specific to like setbacks and the physical structure. And then also something to think about is short-term rentals. We don't have a very clear regulation on short-term rentals, but it is something that the state is allowing communities to determine on a local basis if we want to allow these structures to be used as short-term rentals or not. What we cannot do is require a special permit or discretionary zoning approval for the use or rental of a protected use ADU. We cannot require owners or family members to live in the structure. I think our current zoning states that the property owner or a family member has to live in the ADU, but that's not something that we can ask anymore. And then for parking, they've loosened up some parking requirements. So if you're within like half a mile of the train station, you don't have to have dedicated parking for the ADU unit.
Is that interpreted as half a mile from any boundary or points of the commuter rail station?
Yeah, I think it's, my interpretation of it was like as the crow flies. But
right, but the crow, where does the crow start flying? From a boundary line or from a corner in the?
We, at least in previous with the state, used a central point at the depot and not the edges of the boundary. So if you want to call it in and around the historic building there, 32 Lincoln, I think it is, or High, that's around the center point there, the nexus.
And so we've been working on updating our bylaw over the past few months and in conversation with the board. The primary updates that we have to focus on, for clarity's sake, we'd love to update our accessory apartment definition and just change it to accessory dwelling unit just to create more clarity, as well as updating things like our gross floor area definition. That would just help the building division as well, and we've been working with them and having conversations about, their concerns throughout this process and how we can make the document easier to understand for everybody. For the table of uses, like I mentioned, we previously permitted these by special permit primarily. This will now be allowed by right in all of the zoning districts that allow single family by right. Another thing to consider is that there are single family structures within like business districts that don't allow single family anymore. Is this something that the board would like to allow these existing single families to benefit from, or have entitled uses for an ADU on single family uses in a district that doesn't recognize them as necessarily protected anymore? So just something that we can determine locally if we'd like to. And then for performance standards, currently we allow up to 1,000 square feet. The state recognizes these as 900 square feet, or half the size of the principal structure, whichever is less, in order for it to be classified as protected. The regulations state that you can allow for more, so we could allow up to 1,000 and keep it there if we wanted to, or we could dial that back to 900. I believe in the interim, our building division has been permitting 900 square feet as the protected use. So there's just been that kind of discrepancy in our local language. No property owner, family member has to reside in the unit, no parking requirements within the half mile, and then no bedroom limit is applicable anymore.
Olivia, I have a question before you get to the, actually, I think it was, never mind, go ahead to the topics for discussion.
Yes, so I kind of
my question is captured in there.
I kind of glazed over these in some of the past slides, but as I mentioned, we've been working to update the document and are hoping to do a public hearing maybe in like September and October with you guys, where we would actually pull up the text and the language and what we're proposing and what you guys would like to amend in the document. That can get a little tedious, but to help clarify moving forward for us before we bring that to you, we were maybe hoping to seek consensus on a couple of the like low-hanging fruit. So for instance, like, does the 1,000 square feet locally feel like a number that we want to maintain as a protected local ADU, or does 900 square feet, which is aligned with the state regulations, feel like a more appropriate number? We must allow one protected ADU per lot for single family structures within single family districts. We also have to allow an ADU for multi-unit structures. They're entitled to one, but there is opportunity if it's decided locally that you'd like to see multiple ADUs on a lot, but we would have to require a special permit for those. Only one of them would be identified as a protected use ADU, and the others would be coined like local ADUs. The short-term rental question, again, do we want to permit or prohibit short-term rentals of ADUs? And then also John's point of setbacks and height requirements, which that language is a little confusing in the bylaw, so we're happy to go through that in a public hearing setting and walk through that together. But just some things, if you guys have strong feelings about them now.
You want feedback now?
Yeah, if you do have
Just-
any.
I'll just give you my sense. I go down to 900 to keep it consistent.
Mm-hmm.
I'd only allow one protected unit, ADU unit per lot. Short-term rentals, that may take some discussion, but I don't think they should be used for short-term rentals. But I could see where mom and pop come into the house and they pass along, and now I've got a unit there, but I don't like that idea. Setback and heights, I go along with John. To me, it should not be based on the zoning of that area, what's the lowest denominator zoning? It should be based on what that lot is.
And I should add, protected use ADUs are permitted within structures and on lots that have pre-existing non-conforming structures. So we have lots and structures in town that were permitted under outdated zoning, have different dimensional parameters than we permit today. They would still be entitled to a protected use ADU. But for anything that like extends non-conformity, they would still need like a variance for that, I believe.
One, I think probably everyone knows this, so maybe it's silly to bring it up. The space we're talking about here is the living space. The actual ADU physically can be much larger if it includes, you know, covered parking or cold storage or non-living space areas. It can actually be substantially larger. Imagine a 2-car unheated garage attached to a 900 square foot ADU.
Correct.
So these don't have to be a 900 square foot block in the backyard. That's where the setback really starts to get interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And Tom, I didn't know if you were going there, but if we had an ADU specific, if our zoning had an ADU specific setback so that A, we were explicit, and B, it didn't inherit the lowest common denominator, that might be a way around this. I'm not trying to make it harder, but I'm trying to make the language, you know, kind of bulletproof.
No, and it's the one point of clarification I don't think we've got yet from the state, and we will ask, but in their guidelines and what they say is that a setback, I'll just read this quickly and then explain it, but any requirement concerning dimensional standards such as dimensional setbacks that are more restrictive than is required for the principal dwelling or any accessory structure in the zoning district in which the protected use ADU is located, whichever results in the more permissive regulation shall apply. So it's that accessory structure in which the use is located. And that's where I don't have clarification from them on, can we prescribe a specific setback for ADUs and still maintain one for something like a shed that is substantially smaller and should be allowed almost at the 5-foot setback because it's a small storage shed versus a 2-story 2-car garage now all of a sudden being applicable to that. So I'd like to see if we can do a specific ADU setback rather than trying to conflate it with other accessory structures. I'm hopeful the state would allow us to do that.
I think that'd be really valuable, Andrew. Thank you. You know, what's on my mind is hearing everything that's been said, and at the same time, you know, we have some large lots in Reading, and we have some pretty tight lots, and wanting to be as equitable as possible with the lots that might be pretty tight. It relates to my initial feedback. It's not the first time I've given this feedback, but my initial feedback on number 3 about short-term rentals. This state law that allows ADUs by right came about from, I believe it was the last state housing bond bill. My opinion is that no, we should actually even prohibit short-term rentals because it came out of that housing bond bill in response to the housing affordability crisis we have. That this is widely viewed as a tool for full-time living, to house people. It might be your kids, it might be in-laws, it might be renters. And so I'd like to stick with the spirit of what this is supposed to do, is to provide housing for people as opposed to enabling structures that then are still boxing up people who need housing.
I agree.
And I
think
agree
you
that
articulated. I think you articulated that better than I did.
I'm exactly where you are, Heather.
I'm just giving my rationale, and I do think the setbacks will probably be the piece that really takes some work and examination by this group. Andrew, if you could get some clarification, and we may even want to look at some we may even want to look at some model site plans, with, in the S15 zoning area, and I think we've got like the S20 to see how that shapes out with where people's garages or sheds are. So it'll be really important to not inadvertently disallow garages and sheds at the same time.
And just to confirm, there's no interest in this board requiring site plan approval for ADUs, which is not something we've done in the past. This isn't
I don't
something
have an interest in that at this point.
just confirming. Okay, and nothing's set in stone. Like I said, this is just a high level summary to help catch everyone up to speed and where we're at. Yes, go ahead. You have a public comment.
Oh, good, because that's the next thing. So yeah, be sure that we have some space for public comment.
Hi, John Sullivan, 23 Weston Road. I just want to kind of offer an alternative perspective on the ADUs. If there's I guess there is a market for ADUs in Reading, and that's currently being filled by like apartments and condos that are being rented out short term. I think there's some like down by the train station. So if there's a market that's being filled with, current dwelling units, if we allow accessory dwelling units to be used as short-term rentals, that could divert some of that market away from the condos and the apartments. That would open those up for actual housing. So like the cost of housing is really, it's a supply and demand issue. And if we are limiting supply of places that people could live or could be short-term rentals, because the short-term rentals there's a market for those no matter what we allow or don't allow. More units puts negative pressure on housing prices, and less units puts pressure, positive up pressure on the housing prices. So, thank you.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. We've, in the past on CPDC, when we've been doing bylaw reviews, we've actually looked at short-term rental in general, and is that something that we want to regulate in Reading? And it's interesting to know that condo spaces are being used as short-term rentals. In the past, we've looked at not short-term rentals. I guess for just the sake of discussion, I would maintain that housing is in part supply and demand, and that there are other pressures on it, that investment properties, I think MAPC issued a report, that's the Metropolitan Area Planning Council issued a report a few years ago that showed the number of investor-owned properties in the metropolitan Boston area, and it's pretty large. So I think we want to take into account what's the space that we need for housing, and consider this as, all right, I get your point that we might be, by creating ADUs, we might be shifting the demand from condos to ADUs for short-term rentals. I guess I would maintain that in terms of supply and demand, there's supply and demand for places for people to live, and there is also supply and demand for the short-term rentals. And I'm not convinced that we wouldn't just be growing the supply for short-term rentals as opposed to displacing the supply for short-term rentals. That wasn't as articulate as I want. I'll get better at it next time we talk about it.
Well, from my perspective, I look at the term short-term rental. That has nothing to do with housing, which was the reason why the governor caused this bill to be passed.
That's right.
We just haven't defined that term. What is a short-term rental, though? And I'm not willing to, that's up for grabs. But it seems like short-term rental should not be part of an ADU.
Yeah, and when I'm talking about short-term rentals, I'm thinking about, VRBOs, Airbnbs, not like necessarily like a 6-month rental for somebody
Right.
living for at least 6 months. Any other comments on this from either CPDC or the public?
I would only add our schedule is like proposed for November town meeting, which, is some time away, but with statutory requirements, there are some needs in the fall. But come the August meeting, we can maybe get more specific into like the bylaw language proposals and changes and some of the clarifications we need from the state. Hopefully by then we would have those answers. So.
Yeah, and in the August meeting, could we plan to really dig into the setback question? Do you have thoughts already on any sort of like visual tools that might help us grapple with the setback question?
Yeah, we can certainly come up with some tables and or visuals that effectively show that, because there are different regulations around different types of structures, but they all also come with their own conditions. So like if you are closer to the setback, you're limited in height, and maybe we don't need to, right? No, I don't know. So we'll put those on a table and just make sure like wherever the ADUs fall that they're not, I guess, encroaching too far than what might be found appropriate.
I think that would be a good idea, because it might also focus the state's answer
Right.
if we ended up giving them.
Yeah.
Here are some of the issues.
Yeah.
Their regulations, not that I feel strongly about it either way, but their regulations have some guidance pictures that kind of show what Heather's referring to regarding setbacks, but because of the non-conformity thing where they allow lots with pre-existing non-conforming structures to be turned into ADUs, they kind of advise that allowing a little bit looser setback allowances can be helpful, but again, it's neither here nor there tonight, so.
All right. I think we have enough to work with to get you something hopefully good in August.
Thank you. Is anybody not ready to move on to the next topic, which I believe is the Eastern Gateway update?
Okay. So John did jump off, just so everybody knows he did have a stop at 8. He let us know about that. So I wanted to provide a quick update on the Eastern Gateway zoning process. I know for our 2 new members, I don't know how familiar you are with this process and some of the findings to date. It's been a year-long engagement process in and around Reading's industrial zone, which is located by Walker's Brook Drive and the other side adjacent to Ash Street. I'll have some quick maps, but I don't know how caught up to speed you are on this initiative. I would recommend coming in or finding time for a call with Olivia and I and or another board member, if appropriate, if you'd like, to discuss this project, just because it's been such a long time and we're kind of right in the middle of it right now of its considerations. There's still a lot of work to go, but just to make sure you're up to speed, aware of everything that's happened and where we are, because I'm going to kind of jump in tonight on where we're at right now and what we just did to hopefully set the stage for our next steps. So about a week or 2 ago, actually it might have been longer than that now, maybe 3 weeks ago, we held a focus group with residential abutters to discuss the Eastern Gateway and the actual zoning language, right? So over the past year, we've been discussing public priorities like open space, mixed use development, what makes sense to encourage in this area in future land use development patterns. We've started to translate that into some sort of draft bylaw for this board and others to take a look at, deep dive into. As we started to discuss that with the planning board, there's a lot of questions and possible changes being considered. So we wanted to get to the neighborhood, get their buyback on how that zoning is taking shape, and some of the map and other considerations being made and how they would work. So we did that in mid-June, and I just wanted to report out on that conversation so that hopefully we can effectively guide some next steps. So that focus group discussion was set to discuss the district boundaries, neighborhood allowances and protections because there are some directly abutting properties in and around residential areas, as well as continuing that discussions on outcomes and public priorities. This is the area in question for you guys if you aren't super familiar yet. So over here is Walker's Brook Drive. This is your Stop and Shop. This is your Market Basket and other parcel office buildings and others down here on this side. On my left this is RMLD over here on Ash Street, and DPW, the Frayne parcel, and some others over here. And then what we have outlined in the blue here is that residential neighborhood on Ash Street, which was starting to be pulled, and that was some of our direct engagement here on district boundaries and how this could evolve. So what we worked with on that focus group, right, is the idea of neighborhood protections and what that means. And where we started from was this idea of buffering from public ways, I would say. So Ash Street, right, where we started from was buffering on Ash to say, if you're within 250 feet of Ash Street, you can't go more than 3 stories. You have to have certain setbacks, maybe your uses are restricted, maybe other. Same thing from Bolton, right? We got some neighborhoods over here. From Walker's Brook, maybe we were saying you can't go more than 4 stories, things like that, that were different buffer zones for the different kind of identities of the district. And where this started to evolve to was within those conversations that we had was, it wasn't perfect because, right, what it meant was still like there's some mixed use and commercial allowances that could happen even in the residential side. There's some multifamily or townhome and other spread out. And so how do we start to solve this by having these boundaries, and what does that mean? And from what we could garner from that discussion was everybody thought this boundary made sense, but to change the process, and kind of what we expected was to end up in sub-districting this area. So what we heard again was the north side of the district, right, your Walker's Brook side, can allow for more, right? Most people were happy to consider more stories, more intensive land use, maybe higher lot coverages, try to encourage a lot of growth over on the north side of the district. And on the south side of that district, maybe restrict it a little bit more. Don't allow the same height allowances on those Ash Street parcels. Allow for some gentle density, but not commercial or mixed use or other over on that corridor, except trailing north. And we'll see that in a second. Outside of zoning, right, we heard a lot of things that typically come up in these processes, right? Traffic concerns was a big one. Tom and John, who was here, were both at that meeting. You probably heard it, right? It was a substantial discussion on traffic and what it meant for that area and neighborhoods. And in the future, how can we hope that design and town planning works to limit cut-through traffic, high speeds up and down Ash Street and other. The Ash Bolton Main intersection, of course, is like a big area of interest for a lot of people. We know it's not a great intersection right now. It's a hard one to design appropriately within the existing right-of-way limits and constraints without some drastic changes. But that is an area of interest for a lot of residents and abutters because they feel that if we can address that intersection, we are addressing some of that traffic concern and traffic flow and regulation. So it would be nice to start planning on that intersection and seeing what, if anything, could be done to support that district in the future. And there were questions about DPW and RMLD future planning and needs. If that were, is the town ever going to plan DPW changes or new development? Those are far off conversations that at this time don't have any short-term necessities to say DPW or RMLD is relocating or building something new. So we just got a lot of questions on that and just wanted to put it out there that people are thinking about that as well because they are within the district. So where we again kind of ended up on that conversation on allowing a bit while offering neighborhood protections is this idea of sub-districting rather than the buffer zones. The buffer zones may still come into play at some way in some place, but what's the best and most effective way right now is to sub-district these areas out based on the feedback that we're hearing. So back on that Walkersbrook side, right, you could call that sub-district 1 here in the dark blue. On the south side, all your commercial parcels could be sub-district 2. And then on the light blue is your sub-district 3, which is your residential and transitional area, but no commercial allowances. So you can break it up into those 3 key pieces. That way, each of those pieces has different prescribed requirements, maybe allowing for more up here, maybe allowing for a little less here, and maybe most less here, right? And that's what the next slide, I guess, will explain. So again, looking at those, right, in your sub-district 1, that dark blue, that's your most mixed use and commercial allowances, your greatest height and density allowances. On paper, perhaps to say, that's the area, right, you could go 5 stories with special permit, right? Again, maybe 4 stories by right, 5 with special permit if desired. Sub-district 2, you can say, absolutely no 3 by right, 4th is special permit, no more than 4 in any situation, because there are some parcels, even if right now, right, like they do directly abut residential neighborhoods. So just like downtown, to say no more than 4 stories, somewhere in this yellow might be found appropriate. And in that sub-district 3, to say residential only, no commercial, no mixed use, you have your most restrictive height and density to say 2.5, 3 stories, no more than 10 units an acre as opposed to 30 on the other side, something like that, to say we want the residential frontage on Ash, there's residential across Ash, we want to maintain that neighborhood like transition and feel, and so that can be done through a sub-district. So these are just, again, draft considerations on each of the sub-districts. It would make more sense in the bylaw. But looking at those by right allowances, similar to the downtown development, allow for your multifamily that we've heard about, but incentivize and encourage your mixed use, your commercial under your residential, by saying you can do more with mixed use and or commercial only. Maybe you'll get better parking ratios, you'll get more height if you do mixed use, you'll get maybe additional density bonuses if we get there. We have larger open space expectations on this north side, right? You say 10% minimum of a lot size, you can expect hopefully some substantive open space on those parcels to be configured within it, and other promotions like those parking or other. And then you can have your bonuses and special permits where you say up to 5, maybe 6 stories, right? That office building down there is 6 stories right now. Are there places where that's appropriate, and can we regulate that? Transitional area along Bolton Street, again, we can keep that to a 3-story maximum, so everything is transitioning back down to the downtown. What's the right density, right, for bonuses and special permits? Are we looking for more open space, more commercial? What are we looking for? We'll get into those in future discussions. On that yellow, that sub-district 2, the commercial on Ash, right? Again, you're probably limiting your stories and special permit allowances. That way you have the ability to help encourage the design to be more transitional to the Ash Street neighborhood, right? Maybe that's step backs if there is a 4th floor, to say your 4th floor has to step back on the building itself 5 or 10 feet. Maybe that's stronger setbacks. It's less density on that side because of traffic and other considerations. So, and we'd still be looking to prohibit, restrict auto-centric uses, right? Your drive-through restaurants, storage facility, something like that, that's probably not as conducive to the neighborhood. And then again, in that special sub-district 3, that light blue, that real residential area. Keep it substantially restricted, right? 10 DUA from what I could find. Did allow almost every lot at least one additional unit, if not a few more, but then you add in parking, open space, setbacks, lot coverage, other. So you really limit the density and then try for some special permits or bonuses that we can talk about for that sub-district alone specific. And we've seen some great examples in the past of renderings and other on what up to 20 units an acre can look like. I can always pull them up, but we just wanted to throw out that idea of that's potentially where we could go based on the feedback we heard, is that idea of sub-districting. I do think it ends up on paper making more sense. It offers the most control of each area. And I do think it's easier for a lot of other people to understand as well what's allowed in this area, what's not allowed. And so by going this way, we can structure the bylaw to encourage different things in each of those three areas. So we just wanted to kind of run that concept by you guys, make sure that that makes sense. And if we have a bylaw that's structured as sub-districting, you weren't caught off guard and everyone's on the same page.
Comments or questions from the board? I like the idea of sub-districts. I find it easier to understand than what we had previously, Jerry and Robert, where our zone and then these buffer areas, and every single time we talked about it, even as a board, I think we really stumbled through conversations around the buffer areas. I like the sub-districts concept. And I also very much appreciate the conversation that was had with the neighborhood on Ash Street there, and I'm finding their feedback very valuable. Now I'll see if there are other comments or questions from the board first.
Please ask anything about the, yeah.
No, I mean, at first glance, I agree with Heather. I think it's easily understandable. I like it.
I would second that. I'm gonna go on to another somewhat subject. One of the things is, I think is it New Crossing? I can't remember, that we want to connect the side that you're, the purple, with Ash Street.
Right.
And we talked about 4 paths coming into Ash Street. And we also talked about a cut, trying to avoid that death intersection up there. I'm just wondering, hypothetically, if we were to notify the owners whose property may have to be condemned in one way or another, or taken one way or another for those, and then said, we think we need up to 2 of these to connect to Ash Street. And we're just letting you know.
So
Because what I'm getting at is, there may be somebody who's looking to leave and may be willing to do it.
Right. So,
Cheap.
right, in the vein of that, right, what we want to think about is long-term connection points. There is no desire for takings or other. What we'd like to do is encourage private development to connect. And I think what we can do now, right, what we heard was concerns that if there's connections down here, right, now you're facilitating cut through to work in through the neighborhoods, and that was because everything was allowing mixed use in the past, or the conversation was around mixed use. By limiting mixed use and denser development over towards this area up here, what we would hope to try to encourage is private connections through this north part of the district and keep it away from the neighborhood. So, right, your higher allowances would facilitate improved connections, right? If someone can look to garner private parcels and run their connection to Pond Meadow and New Crossing, that keeps all the traffic out of the neighborhoods. It's all private development encouragement. It's all lot consolidation encouragement. that's what we'd like to do. And by having just the gentle allowances down here, right, it remains residential. People can add a unit, but still just need a driveway or a separate garage. So
While you're up there with your pen, you might as well show what is in the thinking for Washington at Ash Street. How are you going to divert it?
that's a hard question.
Well, yeah, but you had one at the meeting,
Yeah.
which is not a bad idea. I get a little bit worried about a red light on both
Right.
sides of the railroad tracks, but
Yeah, so years ago, the town did look at conceptually studying this intersection along with a number of others up in and around this area, right? And there was an idea of like right turning Ash Street onto Main so that this can dead end. And now you have a 90-degree from Ash and Main, right? The impediment there is commercial parcels and private parcels again. So it was a concept, right, to look at it, right, with the train tracks, knowing that quiet designation, traffic buildup, traffic signaling at Main and Washington. It hasn't really been evaluated further in the last 6 years, just because of the impacts that it does have. That's why I'm saying, like, that's not an easy fix, that intersection. And it's not like just dead ending either is really the answer. So it's configuration, it's long-term planning, it's hopeful partnerships in the future, but understanding that right within the existing right-of-way limits, there's only so much you can do. Heather, I do just want to note Tony D'Arezzo has his hand raised. I think.
Great, let's go to Tony, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Tony D'Arezzo, 130 John Street. I've been to most of these meetings. Unfortunately, I couldn't attend the last one. Part of the problem I keep seeing with this is that you are ignoring Washington Street, you're ignoring Village Street. You're assuming that, and Bolton Street, really, you're assuming that just a 30-foot roadway is sufficient to be a buffer between development and a residential area. What if you're going to do this and expand what can be built in this area, you need to think in a concentric idea and start expanding what can be done for these residences who probably do not want to be that close to Woburn Village or Linfield Marketplace, etc., which is what we're aiming for, giving them an out. Give them some additional density so that their property becomes desirable to a developer, that if they wanted to move, they can move without taking a huge hit because nobody else wants to live next door.
So almost like what we are proposing in that light blue, or at least talking about in that light blue, like gentle allowances in residential areas. Expanding the district, right, at some point it does stop. So we just have to find what are those bounds that make sense.
Tony, did that answer your question?
Yes, I just want to make sure people keep thinking about those just beyond your edges.
Mm-hmm.
And Tony, I want to make sure I'm understanding your suggestion, because it does, you have to draw the line somewhere. Are you suggesting to perhaps consider some of that gentle density allowances on the other side of the street? For each
I
of
would
those
take
areas?
this entire development and surround it with the gentle density, so that the people who are across the street have that ability.
So across the street is what you're suggesting, is where you're suggesting expanding it to?
Yes, and as for are we expanding a district, I look at it more as we're not expanding, because you've got your district with all the rules and regulations that you want. This is nothing more than an expansion or a residential area that you're giving additional leeway to. It's not really expanding the district so much as you're giving them, and I hate to use the phrase, but MBTA community requirements. Let
Yeah,
them
we're not
have
gonna
more density
we're not gonna use that phrase. I say that a little bit tongue in cheek, but actually quite seriously also, is that I want to be very careful to not mix this up with MBTA communities, but that if we're talking about a transition area where additional density is allowed, certainly not required, but is allowed, I see what you're saying of perhaps at least taking it to public comment to extend it to both sides of the street. I understand.
Sorry, but when you say both sides of the street, Tony, my interpreter, you were saying Bolton and Washington and Village, that area as well, not necessarily across Ash Street.
Across Ash Street at the top, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
Though Ash Street is a little different from the others that are
Yeah.
across the street.
Right.
And that you've got a 25, 30-foot cliff behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And the others are basically level with the development or potential development.
Right, but you were, I guess, more directly referencing a Village and Washington area.
Well, definitely across the street of Bolton.
Okay.
And then the Washington Street and Village that actually abut, even though there is a green space behind there.
Mm-hmm.
But how long that will last, who knows? Get one creative person goes in and says, hey, I can rebuild this somewhere else. Next thing you know, you've got a 4-story building in your backyard.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a wetlands area you're talking about.
That is.
Yeah, can we, the next time we talk about this, could we get information about whether or not that's all wetland, and make sure our new members also have access to, no, everybody has access to it as public, but know about the public GIS system where we can go in and see where wetland is.
Yeah, absolutely. And all the dark green on this map and in the slides is wetland. So up here,
All right,
on
thank
that
you.
Village down here, right? That's why there's some built-in residential buffers down this end too, right? That also self-limit density because they just don't have as much buildable area along Ash Street, especially some of those southern Ash Street parcels.
Is there a way of taking that area to the top of the page up there and putting that in a light blue again? I'm not saying it has the same conditions, but I think that's what Tony's
Yeah, I mean, that's
referring to.
what I think he's referring to too, maybe some of these Ash Street parcels in Bolton Street.
Yeah.
And Tony had suggested Washington as well.
Right, so maybe up here, maybe down here, and maybe if there's anything over here. It does get tougher, right? It's not impractical by any means, but I do start to think, right, in terms of this district goals and how do we transition to neighborhoods, right? And then what's the transition from there? And do these in-between areas, in between Main and this or downtown and this, like, how do we consider them as a whole long-term? And probably worthy of a full discussion in and around those areas.
Well, I could see it just, for the reason of placating the people that are in those areas that Tony's referring to, that they're not going to be included at some future time in a commercial development. Or, well, I'll leave it there.
Yeah, interestingly enough, and this is just from a handful of people that came from the abutters meeting, because we did a pretty wide outreach component for that meeting to those who lived outside of just Ash Street. But I did remember hearing from folks on Village specifically that they were comfortable not being included. They felt like there was a lot of existing traffic and development in that area that they are abutters of. They felt fine that Ash Street was included, but maybe the few that I heard felt fine not being included. So there's certainly, yeah, both sides of that perspective.
Okay. It's something that could go either way. I mean, it's more of an optics, and I wouldn't want to create a fourth district because your other district along Ash allows up to 3 stories, something like that.
I think so, and that's probably residential, like pitched roof, like we'll find that measurement. There's probably flat
fence.
roof allowances that might be a little less than the pitched or something like that. And that could certainly, apply to a Washington Street and or Bolton. I don't know if you're still left with gaps there or not. And right now, right, they are in and around the smart growth and this industrial district, Main Street in the industrial district. So it's just right what makes sense on those between areas.
So, Z, are there other comments or input from the public or from Cpdc right now? And if there aren't, Andrew, what would you suggest as next steps here? Or Emily, pardon me.
So I think what we'd like to do is build out the draft language to these sub-districts a bit more, and then I think then maybe it might be even a bit more clear. We can go over the next meetings or so to hone in on those districts specifically, and let's almost talk parking for mixed use on the north, open space for mixed use on the north, and then maybe switch to the south. And are those the same requirements or do they start to change? What makes sense for setbacks over there. So I think we'd like to take a crack at that bylaw, come up with some things that hopefully make sense as a starting point, and then just take it one bite at a time on these sub-districts. Make sure everything lays out and makes sense for you guys. I want to get into specific to that of the density and height allowances by right and by bonus, and what is the stopping points, right? Is that 5 stories or 6? We've heard mix of both, but once you put 6 on paper, what starts to happen. So want to try to flush some of those things out now that I think we have kind of the concept building here.
That sounds good. And can you remind us all, we're not about a time frame for taking this to town meeting and thinking through and going out to a public hearing? This is entirely a self-imposed time frame. Are we trying to do this by November town meeting also, or giving ourselves a little bit more time since there's so much coming up for debate and voting in this town?
Yeah, I've started to believe the latter, give ourselves some more time, and if that means April, that's something we can aim for, and that gives us plenty of room for a bit more engagement, flush some things out with you guys, and hopefully by the new year start the public hearing process to meet those deadlines, and that way there's not a crunch on any important decisions here.
I think that's smart. And I also am thinking we should maybe map out a time frame that also includes an update to the select board and any of the other boards. There was kind of an initial round of, hey, this is what we're up to, and a reminder, this is why, this is for growth, this is for economic development, and maybe just kind of a plan for touching base with the relative boards so that by the time we're going to a public hearing, it doesn't seem fresh or drastically changed. It's not drastically changed from what we were doing before.
That makes a lot of sense. We're definitely happy to get to select board, FinCom, and school committee. All but school committee do have reps on the steering committee, which we're hopeful to meet with in the next week or two. at some point I would like to propose, and John is here tonight from the steering committee, and we're encouraging everyone to stay up to date, but it might be helpful at some point, hopefully, whether that's like some sort of joint meeting style, if we can find a date, to get the steering committee and CPDC, once this bylaw is kind of built, to make sure that the goals of what the steering committee heard over the year plus and their input is also reflected in the language that we're writing with you guys. And so we're doing it individually right now, but it might be good at some point to hopefully have that kind of group discussion, I think.
Just as an aside, I saw in the paper where 6 million or something like this has been, quote, set aside for this project. Am I seeing things right?
No idea what you're talking about.
You see that too?
I have,
$6 million.
Yeah,
I have,
I think I saved the paper.
yeah,
Oh,
I don't have any,
And it was one of these iffy things. It's not
Right.
like you're gonna spend it next week.
no, I have no
Writing
It
paper?
was- Yeah,
budget. We're hopeful for some grants and some small scale, like within our local budget, for like design guidelines and things if and when we get there. But nowhere near the tune of 6 million. The Walkersbrook Drive project, I think, got a tip approval, and that's a separate
oh,
project that's related.
maybe
but
that was
I
it.
think that long-term construction federal funding grant was about 6 million.
Okay,
estimate.
okay, that was probably it
Yeah,
then. Okay.
okay. I think that's all we got tonight.
Okay.
Okay, that's good. I'm about ready to lose battery. I was just feeling a
Yes.
little bit. Do we want to take 30 seconds to, 60 seconds to approve the minutes?
10 minutes?
Do we have enough?
We had June minutes, it was
10 minutes?
really
No,
short,
sorry.
20-minute meeting last month, so there wasn't much.
I had no comments on the minutes.
Tom, you were the only other, were you there?
Yeah, I know, I was there. And I will say, Heather, if you've read it, and you're comfortable with it, I'm satisfied.
They were
Jerry
very
and Bob,
brief.
you can vote on the minutes.
Oh, wait, so do we need to wait till, did you say they can or they cannot?
I believe they can vote on the minutes.
Yeah,
Even though we.
I think so
yeah.
too.
Yeah. Mhm.
Interesting.
So I'll take a motion to approve the minutes.
I didn't see it in the agenda. I'll move that we approve the minutes of the last meeting in June.
And I'll go ahead and second, and I guess we need a roll call still, right? So we'll do a roll call vote. Heather, yes. Tom,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
Richard?
Yes, Bob.
Robert.
Fantastic. Robert, I called you the wrong name.
Bob,
Pardon me.
whatever works.
I will do that properly when we're
Thank
in
you.
person and I see your name tag. Please, beg your
No worries.
forgiveness. Okay, thank you. And now all we need is a motion to adjourn.
I'll move that we adjourn.
All right, great,
Second.
thanks. Second?
Second.
All right, thanks. All those in favor? We
Aye.
all are.
Yep. All righty.
Aye. Right. Thank you, everybody. I'll see you in real life in August.
Thank you, Heather. Drive safe.
Okay, thanks, bye.
Bye.